we're on, we're buzzing. Right, well, I think what we will do is let Anne do her thing, and then we'll come back for some questions and answers afterwards, Anne. Thank you again, Anne, for being the guest speaker today. And as I say, it is recorded, everybody. So, be yourself anyway, but it is being recorded. So if you don't like swearing in public like me, then please refrain from doing so. Take it away, Anne.
Hi everyone, my name's Anne Okafor. I'm going to keep it kind of informal. I was asked to speak about a little bit about my journey through construction and a little bit about how I sort of have brought confidence into my journey. So I'm going to talk about that. I'm going to talk about just where I started out and a little bit, I'll give you the scenic route. I won't give you all the gory details of the whole last 10 years, but I'll give you a little insight as to what that journey has looked like for me coming into construction, and how I've went from being someone who doesn't know anyone in industry 10 years ago, to the person I am now, and the things that I've done along the way, especially how I've brought confidence to that. So about 10 years ago, I was working in hospitality and retail jobs, and I really wasn't enjoying it, to put it politely. I went away on my holiday, come back. Now, we've all been in that way where you're just back from summer holidays and you're thinking, oh my God, I'm going back in to do this again. I was like that, but I decided that I wasn't doing this for the rest of my life. So on the train journey home, I applied to college because that's what you do when you're coming back from your holiday. I applied to 3 colleges to do, it was actually architectural technology that I was really interested in at that time. I got 2 rejections and 1 college invited me to come and have an interview. So I thought, I'd kind of forgot about it. Between applying, and it took a wee bit of time for them to come back, but in that time I'd kind of forgotten about it, got back into my flow doing my job, and then I get this invitation to go for an interview, and I think, oh, I'm not going to get in. I had a issue around maths. I didn't get any qualifications from school with maths, so I was kind of like, I'm probably not going to get in, but I'll go and see what I need to do maybe for future, and then I maybe find some night course around the maths element. Went down on my day off for this course, for the interview, and the guy basically said yes to me. So this stranger, who didn't know much about me other than that I'd taken a chance on this course, gave me the first yes that I'd had in a long time. And so I grabbed the opportunity, and I went home that night. Haven't told anyone that I was doing this. Hadn't told my friends, hadn't told my family, hadn't told the people I worked with. But I went home that day and handed in my notice on my flat and my job, and moved 4 weeks later to a town I didn't know anyone, which it seems insane now when I think about it. I don't know if I'd have the courage to do that again. But the way I seen it, that was the one chance, the one opportunity that I could get. So I decided to do that, and I moved. I started with the NC in built environment. Again, didn't have any of the maths knowledge, but they were aware of that, and they said, the built environment NC was a good route in. Through that, I did that, and then I did the HNC, and I got at that point introduced to the Chartered Institute of Building, and they're what is now their Tomorrow's Leaders Group. It used to be called Novus back then. My lecturer had introduced me to that, and that has been a fantastic platform for me to sort of like showcase skills and get training that I didn't really get at the employers that I worked with, and that I didn't really get through university. So that helped me to develop things like public speaking, because they asked me to go and help with like student presentations. And at the beginning, like, they laugh about it now, but they say, oh, when we met you, you wouldn't barely say hello to us, and now they can't get me to be quiet. So I've come a wee bit of a long way, but that network has been really, really useful for me in building my confidence, building lots and lots of skills. I've been involved in lots and lots of groups with the CIOB over the last sort of 9-10 years, which has helped me to grow in my personal development in lots of many ways. So I did that, and I was also working on site. So but by the time I got to university, I worked for a company who gave me a position where I would work the couple of days that I wasn't at university. I'd started with them in a summer placement, and I was so frightened that I didn't want to ask if I could stay on after university. And the female planner that worked there, she was like, just ask and see if they've got anything that they can give you, they can keep you on while you're at university a couple of days. And I was like, I'm too nervous to speak to, at the time, the construction director. I was so nervous, and I can't just approach the construction director and just ask, like, that's outrageous. And she was like, if you don't ask, you don't get, so just ask him. And I was like, oh, I'll think about it, and I couldn't do it. And then one day, when I was in on this work placement, she phoned me and she said, oh, I need you to come and help me with something in the office. And I was like, okay. And she literally pushed me in the door, and the construction director was in there, and she was like, oh, hi John, Anne's got something to ask you. So she kind of helped me with some forced confidence there, because when you're standing there and in that position, you kind of just have to ask. So I did, and they ended up giving me this job where I was working a couple of days a week when I was doing my university course, which was really good, and it helped me with lots of development. They were also super good to me in that they paid for my driving license, and with a caveat that by the time I finished uni, I would need to have passed my lessons. So I've had some really good advocates and really good support and sponsorship through the way along that route. When I finished university, I changed jobs into working as a planner. The same lady, funnily enough, was at a different company and asked me what I was doing once I'd finished university. And I said, I'm not unhappy in my job, but if something comes up, then I'll maybe think about it. At that time, I was working on site as an assistant site manager. Loved that job, but I do a lot of volunteer work. I'm a girl guiding leader, and I do lots of volunteering with STEM and other groups. So it's important to me that I'm able to have the evenings to facilitate those volunteering things that I like to do. So I then decided that it would be better to have a job as a planner, because it would be a little bit more rigid in terms of the time. I wouldn't necessarily have to work longer in the evenings or weekends or things like that, which I was doing in the previous job. So I interviewed with her boss, and they took me on as an assistant planner to help her. And that's how I got into the planning role from site management and things after university. I did that job for about a year and a half, and then I was redundancy came calling. This was the COVID, the sort of pre-COVID stuff. Things were getting a bit difficult, so my role was made redundant, and I got another job. That was actually just after the lockdowns, and they took me straight in, and I worked with them for about 2 years, and then redundancy was kind of coming in again. Unfortunately, the company was going through lots and lots of structure changes, so there was just a whole lot of stuff and some situations that I wasn't comfortable still being around. So then I sought, before redundancy actually came calling, I decided that it was time to make a move, and I got this job, what I'm currently working at, which is much better and has given me a space to grow, so that they know where I need development. I went in very much with that. I went in very much and asked, and I would never have done that. I went from being too scared to ask if I could have a job to then going into a job where I negotiated salary, but I also negotiated what I needed in terms of development, which again, a few years ago I just wouldn't have done, and I certainly wouldn't have done it as well as what I had, and spoke up for myself. I think it's really important that across the way we speak up for ourselves and give ourselves the best chances where we can, but it's easy not to do that when we're so conditioned not to, and I certainly, when I look back, was so conditioned not to speak up for myself. I'm told not to speak up, don't put your head above the parapet, don't cause trouble, all those types of things that we're kind of told as girls and young women a lot of the time. So I've done a lot of personal development over the time. And now I get involved. I'm still involved with the Chartered Institute of Building. It's a big passion of mine because I love what they do. I love that they advocate for the benefit of the construction industry. But I also am involved with the Construction Industry Council. I represent Scotland and I represent on the 2050 group. So again, I'm then representing the CIOB in another forum where we can affect change. I sit there with lots of different professional bodies. So it's not just the CIOB, but it's bringing the CIOB to a bigger sort of forum, and being able to help get these industry changes that are so desperately needed in a bigger forum, and where we can actually make change. So I'm really passionate about doing all that. And another thing that I'm really passionate about doing is STEM work with children. So I go into schools, colleges, universities, all of that, from primary 1, so from age 4 to 5 here, right up to whatever age people are at university, talking about my career in construction, talking about skills that they need in STEM, so curiosity, creativity, courage, all those types of things, as well as the getting them interested in the industry and explaining about what jobs there are, what opportunities there are, the legacy we leave, the changes that we can make to not only the industry but to the world. Giving them a little bit of an insight as to the challenges the industry has as well. I find it's quite a hard tightrope to balance, but I think it's important to give a balanced view to help people understand the changes that we need to make and what we are doing to make a better industry for the future. So that's a little bit about where my story is. Today I'm working as a construction planner in Scotland, and I'm involved with a number of different projects across the UK really. I've mentioned the Chartered Institute of Building and the Construction Industry Council. I'm also an ambassador for Axel Construction School, and I also am an advisor with Build My Talent, which is an online recruitment platform as well for industry professionals. So those are my main kind of focuses. And then obviously I'm a STEM ambassador, so that's how I get into schools and tell them all the great stuff that we do in construction and some of the not so great stuff. But those things, I'd let them know about what we're working on, and all the opportunities. For me, confidence comes, and how I've attacked that basically. I was always a shy person to begin with. Some people may find that hard to believe now, but I attacked it by learning to just be more curious, I think, and trying to take on challenges, but with a curiosity mindset rather than this is do or die sort of thing. So it was like, what happens if I do this? What happens if I ask that question? What happens if I speak up at the meeting? And almost treat it like an experiment to start with. And that was really useful for me. Even basic stuff, like I just started like being curious about everything. So I'm really bad for I like to go to the same, if I go to a gym class, I like to go to the same square on the floor. Put my mat down in the same place every week, right up at the back, usually in a corner. But I was like, what happens if I go in the middle today? Like, just see it as an opportunity to explore a little bit. What can I learn about myself if I go in the middle? How does it make me feel? And then just really picking away at all those little things. So for me, curiosity was the start of becoming confident, taking on the challenges, and actually just that courage to step out and try these things, because it's really difficult, but starting really, really small, starting with the little things that don't really, matter so much, like the gym, taking a different locker in the gym, going to a different toilet cubicle, stuff like that, because it's sort of things that we do all the time, and maybe they'll resonate with you, maybe they won't. But there's certain things that we tend to do, we get stuck in our ways a little bit. And I just started just being curious with those things. And then I started to get bolder and bolder, because as we step out of that comfort zone and we realise that we're still safe and it's okay and nothing happened, and maybe I preferred the middle of the room or the front of the room, then I started to experiment a bit more with other things. So I would experiment with things at work. What if I ask the question? What happens if I speak up in the meeting? What is the outcome if I ask for help? I'm notoriously bad for asking for help, but just recently I've had 2 instances where I've kind of been forced to ask for help, and in both instances there's been really great outcomes. So again, it's just that stepping out of your comfort zone ever so slightly, and just asking for help, or just noticing and noticing without judgment on yourself. So how does it make you feel to take a different space in the gym room floor? It might be that it's awful for you, but just knowing that, understanding that, and not being judgmental about yourself. How would you speak to your friend if they were in that situation? Well, you tried, that's fine, let's move on, try something else next week. So I really sort of put myself in that mindset of just being curious about things, and just trying to take little small steps of courage, which then builds confidence, because the more you do it, the easier it gets, the bolder you get, and you start making sort of bolder moves, and you feel more comfortable negotiating your salary, or whatever it may be for you that you're sort of working towards. For me, it was a whole life change. It was a whole, I said at the beginning of the meeting that I got divorced last year. And because I had the confidence in myself, I was emboldened to make those decisions that were actually best for me. I don't expect any of you to go down that road, but it's been so freeing for me to be able to make all these little steps. I've overcome my dental phobia that I had, as well as part of this process, by just being curious and just noticing and just taking tiny steps towards that goal. And it's been really empowering, and it really has, and it sounds really cheesy to say this, but it's really changed my life. Being in the construction industry from where I started to where I am now, it just wouldn't have been believable to me 10 years ago that I'd be where I am today. And I think it's really good to remember that sometimes, that you can have a direction of travel, but be open to opportunities along the way. I think sometimes we get set in our ways that we must do X, Y, and Z, and it must look like this, and it's not always that way. So I think just be open to that opportunity that may come along the way, because a lot of the things that I'm involved in today, I would have never even thought possible. I wouldn't have known about. I didn't even know that construction planner was an opportunity until I was actually in the industry and started working with people who did that job. I didn't know that coming out of sort of I'd had a bit of an idea at university, but I didn't really know it was a specific job that someone could just do that. I thought it was like involved in the project management job. So I think just be open to that and be willing to see other opportunities, because I think it is easy to get stuck following a set path, and that's fine if that's what you want to do and that works for you. But for me, it's certainly been helpful to be open to things as they come along. Like I say, my involvement at the Chartered Institute of Building as well. I mean, I wasn't even going to go to that first meeting because, again, I was so nervous. I was like, how can I walk into a room? And at that time, it was very much like, how do you walk into a room with all these guys? And it generally was kind of that back then. Not all the time, but there was that kind of, certainly that thought about it. And I was like, how can I do that? I don't know anybody. I don't, I'm just a student. All this kind of the stories that we tell ourselves. And then I thought, you know what? I'm just going to go and see what happens. And if it's rubbish, I just don't go back. Well, that was like 9.5 years ago, and they still keep inviting me back to things. And I always say that Wilma, who's our members coordinator in Scotland, once she gets you never get to leave. But that's not a bad thing, because we do lots of good things within that community, not just in Scotland, but across the globe, really. And I'm glad I found that. But the professional development that I've had because of that network, the network that I've made because of that network, the opportunities that I've had have just been incredible, because I said yes to some things that I wasn't sure about. Being involved in this community and meeting Michaela, again, was just things that, I'm not sure about. How can I go and do this? Speaking on stage, how can I do this? Just to be open to those things. And if you're not ready to do that thing yet, what can you do that maybe nudges you towards it? Can you do a video talk, or can you put out a video on your social media or something? If you're not ready to do the big thing yet, are you ready to do something that helps you get closer to it? And I think we can all do that. I think we can all do something small with curiosity that brings us to that confidence. I think you can all do little things that will build up over time if you just get a little bit curious. take a bit of courage. That's the hard part. But I think for me, looking at it with that curious mindset has really been total game changer, because you just treat things like an experiment. So if it doesn't work out, it's absolutely fine. And actually, you know, when you fail at things or when they don't work out, it just means you found a way that it doesn't work, you know, so then you're better off next time when you have a go, because you know you're already one trial down. And I found that really useful. So I'm going to stop rabbiting on there, because that's kind of my journey in a nutshell. I'm happy to answer any questions that anyone has, or if I can help with anything specifically, I'm happy to do so.
So much, Hannah. Do you know what? It's a really inspiring story. But do you know what I find wild is, obviously, I understand you as a shy person, but the first move that you made was so extreme that surely everything come after that just. Did you not think, oh, it just can't be as bad as moving homes, moving jobs, starting everything from scratch? That is the biggest thing. And even now you're saying 10 years on, I can't imagine doing it again. But that is like wildly confident to go on and do that and then be like, I'm really shy. Like, you can't possibly be shy. That's massive.
So I think for me at that time, it didn't come from a place of confidence. It came from a place of desperation to not do the same thing all the time. So I think I probably didn't recognize it as confident. I felt like I was running away a wee bit, but also to try something new. But it came from a place of desperation, I think, just to not be stuck in that rut, you know. And I'd promised myself that I was going to go back to school. For a long time, you know. Some of you will know that after school I was homeless for a period of time, so I didn't actually get to go to university straight from school. So at that time I'd always promised myself that you're going to go back and do this one day. Now, whenever that is, I don't know when it'll be. I didn't know at that point. I wasn't even sure it would ever happen at that point, but I promised myself that I was going to make it happen. And when this random stranger 3 hours away from my home gave me this one yes, I grabbed that because I knew that was my chance to go back to school. I didn't know it was going to go to university at the time. That was never the plan. I never felt that university was particularly for me. I'd kind of always been told it wasn't for me. So that was never part of the plan. But the more I actually got involved with the Chartered Institute of Building, and people there had said to me, you know, if you want to get into site management and stuff, because you don't have trade background, it would be better to get university, get your degree, and it will help you with that road. That's how I ended up sort of like going from college. My intention was just to do college, do the HNC, and then try and get like a work experience type thing and get in that way. But then I found myself at university, I found myself getting a degree, I found myself doing a master's program, I found myself getting chartered, you know, and all these things were never part of the plan 10 years ago, because I would have never thought of them as being possible at that time. So it looks like confidence now, but it certainly didn't feel like confidence at the time to make that move. It was very much just, I can't be doing this for the rest of my life. And yeah, like I said, I didn't even think when I applied to college that I would get in, because the whole like not having the qualifications from school. So I thought it would be a smaller stepping stone than it was. I thought I would be there for a couple of years, like maybe trying to upskill my maths to get to the stage where I would be able to go to college. I didn't think they would just say yes straight away. But then that guy said yes and changed my whole life in 4 weeks. It was just mad.
Yeah, it's amazing, Anne. And I have a couple of questions, but before I do, does anybody else want to ask anything or say anything?
I'm back on now. I just wanted to say I missed the first 5 minutes, sorry, but I was laughing there when she said she was shy as well, because there's lots of things I resonated with you, and I'm completely, you know, the opposite. So it is just our own little confidence, you know, our self-confidence and little things, but I'm also OCD, so I pick the same things like all the time, and I wouldn't even think about trying them, you know, so I'm trying to change them. But confidence and, you know, intimidation is not, you know, it's a completely different thing for me, but I resonate with absolutely all the inner side of things that you said. So it was really inspiring. Thank you so much for sharing.
You're welcome. Thanks, Belinda.
Yeah, and Rachel's just put in the comments as well, which I completely agree with. And his time management techniques, and you do so much. When you was all that stuff. I was like, all right, I go to work, and granted, I have some children, but beyond that, I'm not volunteering for nothing, and literally zero. No, thank you. My only volunteering is I will volunteer to walk to the bar at the weekend. It seems like you just do so much stuff. How are you possibly squeezing it all in?
So the official answer is I'm a great construction planner. I can schedule things very well. But generally, I just make time. Like I make commitments to things, and I make commitments to me. I make sure, first and foremost, that I schedule time for me in my diary before anyone else gets a piece of me. Because at the end of the day, if I'm not looking after me, then I can't do all these things that I commit to. So I make sure, like, I put appointments in my diary for myself. So like I make sure that I go for my swim in the morning. I make sure that I'm going for a walk if that's what I want to do. I make sure I spend time with my partners, and I have them scheduled in the diary before anything else gets scheduled. So that's a big thing, because then it means I get me time, and then anything around that people can have a bit of if I feel up to it. Like I love the volunteering for me, and lots of people say how does that fit with everything else you do? But everything fits, and what my focus is through all of my different projects is humanizing the construction industry and making it more human, making people understand about the humans behind the hard hats. It's not all just bricks and mortar and cranes and all that stuff, which is great stuff, and we need all those things. But first and foremost, there's humans. And for me, that starts right back at sort of primary school, teaching people STEM skills, because STEM's everywhere, STEM's all across the built environment. The built environment's everywhere. So just helping people to understand that, and the things that we do. Certainly, I think it's going to become more prevalent with climate change and net zero and all that. And so getting people to understand how important the built environment, not just construction, is in the world, and is probably increasingly more so, with AI and things like that. We've got all this AI coming in, and people are talking about all these digital skills, and we need all these tech things, and we need computers, and we need all this. Actually, first, you need human skills. We need people who understand what's happening. You need all these good human skills that we have to inform the digital stuff. It's all well and good having all the great digital stuff, but if we don't have humans that can talk to each other, then how are we going to tell robots how to do that? We don't. It starts all with humans. So a lot of it all comes under that sort of brolly for me, and I support, like say, education. I support recruitment initiatives, education initiatives, because essentially, and it sounds really silly, but I'm not doing the same work over and over again. I'm maybe having similar conversations across all the different things that I do, but all the work that I do and all the learning, I'm bringing them to all of these different platforms. So a lot of it's crossover, and the involvement is because I understand these things, because I've got crossover and I'm involved in all the different things. So my time management is basically scheduling for me first, and making sure that I get that important time for me and for my family. And then just making sure my work, obviously, because they are then the second people to get scheduled, because they pay for all this stuff, and pay for me, and having a supportive employer as well that encourages me to be involved in these things for my own development, but also because they know that I bring whatever I have got, I bring it to the company. So I've got a supportive employer, which hugely helps, and just having a really good network around me. But yeah, and what I've learned as well, and it maybe not considered a time management technique, but it really is learning how to say no to things, because sometimes we say yes, and then we find ourselves like, getting pulled apart, but just knowing how to say no and when to say no. So I'm able to do that and have those skills, that helps me to do all the things I want to do. Plus, I don't have any children, which actually does help, I think. So for me, that's, because I don't have children, I have the time to be able to do things that I want to do, at the times I want to do them. So that it's not a technique as such. It's just something that does, it does help me in my personal life, that I've made that choice not to go down that road.
What a great choice that was, Anne. Honestly, I can tell you, with two sons. I mean,
that's how I get everything done as well. It is really about prioritizing.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Sorry, Noel, did you want to say something?
Yeah, listen, there was no way I was missing this one this morning. You've been an inspiration to so many people. You and your little ducks. You can maybe explain where that all came from. But I think what you brought out this morning is a couple of things. One, you just mentioned there's time management, but I think more importantly, the need for networking. That's why, of course, I'm going to talk about the COB being that great networking, but this design and build UK, what Michaela's been doing, I know the importance of networking at the end of my career, but I just encourage each and every one of you to keep getting involved and bring your members along with you. I was chatting to a young lady yesterday who I'm mentoring her through COB membership, and she's a wee bit lost, so I'm going to get her connected with you, Michaela. And it's important. It really is important because I know you'll network with your own big people in business. Some of you may work from home, like I do now for the first time in my career. It is so important to keep contact with people, learn from people. You will hear new things. Industry's changing. We've had Grenfell, we've had a lot of stuff coming out there. That's how you'll learn, by maybe getting involved in little CPD events, whatever. And you're a star, you are, and great to hear you again.
Thank you, Noel. I appreciate all the support that you've given me,
Yes.
particularly over the number of years that I've known you as well. So it's much appreciated. And I think it is, it's important to say, and I'm not just saying this because you're there, Noel, but to have those allies that really do back us. And, I started out by saying, how do I go to CIOB thing with all these guys? But it was the best thing I ever did, because I tell you what, all of those guys are brilliant, and they have been brilliant. I've never had a bad experience. It was guys from the CIOB, and I say guys because it was men that checked in on me first when I announced that I was getting divorced, to make sure I was safe, and then make sure that I was looked after and I had what I needed and I had advice. And it was those allies as much as it was my friends and women in my networks. Those allies have been really supportive and given advice along the way, and I've been really lucky to have mentors and supporters from both male and female side of the coin. So I can't say thank you enough to the allies as well, and in particular yourself. No, thank you.
Oh, what a lovely moment. I'm glad it was recorded, you see. Love hearts.
I might regret that.
No, love, like, you said, Anne, well, actually, I think it is really important to mention, though, the networking part of thing is so important. So from what you said as well, Anne, yes, I was painfully shy, but it was more anxiety. And I know it's thrown about a lot nowadays, anxiety, but it was, what I had was quite extreme. I didn't leave my house at one point for 6 months. I was just an absolute nervous wreck. I mean, I wouldn't even go shopping. I did not leave my house. And then I went on The Apprentice. I was like, well, I mean, some stuff happened in between, from me not leaving my house to doing that. But in the end, ultimately, what got me over it all was I just threw myself in at the deep end, which is why I was saying to you about the first move being the big move. That's kind of what I did. But then I still had this inside me where I was an absolute nervous wreck. And there was no way I was ever going to any networking event previous to The Apprentice. So I've been in business for 7 years, and we was doing well. We were doing like 4 million turnover, and I did not meet anybody in person. I didn't meet a single client face to face. I did everything over the phone. I never went on Zoom. It weren't really a thing then anyway. But I just wouldn't have done any of those things. And then I was like, what can I do to get over this? My brother had been on Love Island, so I was like, oh, well, I'll go on the telly as well. And then I went on that, and that kind of broke everything. But I was still nervous, and it was only to The Apprentice when I really started to build my network. And since then, the growth in the business, the growth in me personally, following through with my ideas. I'd always have a new idea and then not really doing anything about it because it would involve actually speaking to people. And so off the back of The Apprentice, I got this confidence, and then from there I was able to grow. But the network then that I've grown since then, obviously the women in construction stuff, all of this that we do every single month when we go to do this, I'm so anxious before, in the lead up to it. I was like, oh, what if nobody turns up? What's going to come out of my mouth on that meeting? And I've got the awards in a few weeks. I've got to say something. I'm like, oh my God, I've got to get on the stage. I know I'm definitely going to swear, and there's all these people in the audience. But I just force myself basically to do it. It isn't something that I'm comfortable with at all by any extent of the imagination. But I think you've just got to keep forcing yourself to do it, pushing on. And from the previous experience, you have like something in your armor to fall back on. You know, I'm like, well, I got fired in front of 9 million people, so surely this situation can't be worse than that one. And you kind of use these experiences to help take you into the next uncomfortable experience.
No, I agree with that. And I think for me, I think part of it is just being more comfortable with who I am as well. Like if people don't like me, well, so be it. Do you know what I mean? Like I'm happy with who I am now. You know, so much so that I will go to an award show with a bag of ducks with me, and I really don't care if people think it's weird. It is weird, but it's me. So I really don't care, do you know, and
I miss
because
this bag of duck situation.
I did say bag of ducks, not live ones. That confused someone wholly the other day. Yeah, so I started taking, this started, actually, it was a CIOB thing where this actually started, was in 2019, the CIOB Members Forum came to Edinburgh. So that's where like lots of members from across the world all get together in one location. So I'd been talking with one of the guys, again, let's go back to networking, because I knew this guy from the Tomorrow's Leaders part was going to be coming from Australia. We'd started speaking online like months ahead. So we were like, oh yeah, you're going to be in Edinburgh and we'll plan a wee visit. And then he was like, oh, I want to visit certain places. I'll drive you around for a few days. So we got together and I drove him around a few places. But again, at that point, we were so shy, both of us. We weren't into taking photos at all. Like, it just wasn't happening. But we're like, we kind of need to do a little bit of something because it's the members forum. We kind of need to show about. So we came up with this idea to take 2 little mascots. So I had my little duck, which was called Donald. It's like a little Scottish duck that's like a piper. And he had a little koala bear called Kai. So we had like Donald and Kai's adventures going around Scotland for this week. And that's how we took photos of the places we were. Then the duck got thrown in a drawer and forgotten about. And then when I started doing STEM work, I started to take the ducks with me, like when I was going interesting places like bridges or stuff. So for the younger children, I would take like funny pictures of the duck near the bridge and stuff and like add it into a little, like, can you see the duck in the presentation sort of thing. And then I kind of started putting those pictures on LinkedIn just as I was out doing this presentation for the kids. And then people started recognizing me at network events. Oh, you're the lady with the ducks. You're the duck lady. And that's all it is now. So I have ducks for everything. People send me pictures from across the world almost every day, which I love, as long as I don't ruin their holiday. You know, literally pictures from all over the world. When people see ducks, they're like, seen this and thought of you. And it's just, it brings me joy. It also opens up so many conversations that that I wouldn't have had, you know, because people come and ask about the ducks, or, you know, I've had people just come up and say, oh, you know, conversations with strangers on trains, just, oh, tell us about the ducks. And, you know, or they tell me, in fact, I actually went to a football event the other week, and one of the ex-players was there as a guest speaker, and he was like, what's the ducks about? And I was like, oh, here we go. Do you know what I mean? But you know, I'm just going to tell this guy. And he was like, no, I'm asking because my mum loves them. And so he, you know, he went and he actually took one of my ducks home for his mum, a little football duck. And, you know, again, I've made connections. So I make connections through them. Also, it's just another anchor point that people can make connections with me. And again, I think going back to that me being shy thing, like I'm not really most confident about going and seeking out conversations when I go to network. Like I find it hard to go and make that first move, but the ducks bring people to my space rather than me having to like go into this big room of people and go, where do I start? You know, the people that are curious enough about the ducks come and find me, and those are generally the people I want to speak to anyway. So
I need to get myself some kind of prop there. Have a think about that today.
You need a mascot. I'm so glad I know the story behind the ducks now, because I just thought you really like ducks, Anne. I know I've seen you at UK Construction Week, you was in like your full duck dress and you had these ducks. She was like, hold the ducks. And I was just like, Anne really fucking loves ducks.
She really does. She really does. But yeah, there
you
is.
didn't think of asking her about it, no?
Sorry.
was just like, I'm accepting, do you know what I mean, Belinda? I was like, I love ducks.
Each their own.
We'll have a
Yeah,
picture
no, I've
with
always
the
played
duck,
that
whatever
part.
floats your
Anybody
boat.
else's opinion of me is
So
none
the
of my
ducks
business.
also, the ducks, there's also a thing. So part of the one of the STEM networks I'm in, they have 3 C's for like STEM skills, which I teach the children. So it's curiosity, creativity, and courage. So some of the ones that we had for confidence, but also including creativity. And for me, I have ducks for me sort of represent that creativity. It's my reminder every day to be creative. So if you see me usually with lots of ducks, I'm trying to be creative. I'm trying to be in that
Don't
mode.
think you're a weirdo. You're using them.
And weirdo as well, which is absolutely fine. But I also have sort of like animal personifications of the other 2. So for me, courage, if you see me wearing a dinosaur dress, I'm stepping into courage. And if you see me with cats, that's me being curious. So that's my little sort of like creative ways of keeping myself true to the things that I'm working on at the time. So lots of ducks means I'm trying to be creative and really weird, which is fine.
It's
I
only
love
weird to
that.
those who think it is.
The other great thing as well, actually, and I say this to some people when I'm mentoring them, is when people are frightened about coming to networking, I'll say, look, I'm going and I'm going to have my ducks. So you're not going to be the most weird person in the room. Like, I will be that person. So don't be afraid to come along. And it's helpful to people, I think.
I think just what's really interesting, Anne, is I never speak to anybody who's like, I love networking. I love networking events. That's when I'm really coming to my own. Anybody who says anything about it is, God, it's awful. I don't know how to start the conversation. I guess some people it's just natural, but I can honestly say, still at this point, I go to them. But I don't think I've ever walked over to anyone and said, hi, what's your name? I wouldn't even know what to do. So I just stand and hope that somebody comes and says something to me.
Well, see, I do that as well, but I have ducks so people come.
With the ducks and the magnet.
I know what's going on. I know. I've been going to loads, but like that's the thing, like out, like I'm so extroverted that I would do that, or I'm loud enough. Actually, that's what it is. I'm loud enough that people come over to me. They're like, what's she talking about? It's the accent, yeah. The minute someone said that, and I'd be out with it. But it seems to draw a bit of attention. But look, it is what it is. Has to be done, really. It depends on your situation and going out and meeting people. I'm in a new area. I know nobody. So what else do I do? But yeah, look. Everyone has their each their own ways to do it, but the more you do it, the easier it gets. It doesn't mean you're not going to be nervous. It just gets easier.
Absolutely, and I think it's just finding what works for you. Find what works for you. If it's ducks, great. If it's not, it's But maybe next time some of you will just think, oh, well, maybe I'll try and ask the first question. Go back to that sort of curious thing I'm saying, like, what would happen if I make the first move, and if I ask someone the first question, how does that, and then you can go and analyze it, and how does that make me feel afterwards? But just say, what would happen if, and just observe it with judgment. Like, if it makes you feel awful, don't get too upset back to yourself. Just notice that and understand that, and then you can say, well, actually, I know that doesn't make me feel good. I'm not going to do it again, or maybe I'll try again in 6 months, and that's absolutely fine. Maybe next time I'll go with a friend and we'll try, and just kind of try it that way, because it is difficult, especially when you don't know anyone. It's really quite daunting to go into the room sometimes. Like I say, I'm not a particular fan of networking, but it's done so much for me that I understand the power of it and the need to do it, and I've found my way of navigating that awkwardness and that space that works for me to bring people to me, rather than to feel like I have to go in and approach everybody in the room or to know who to approach. I've just found a way that helps people come to me, which works for me and my style of communicating.
Yeah, it's a great idea.
And I think Rachel's just added in, it goes back to what you were saying earlier, Anne. It can help to just think about creating connections with other humans. I think that's the key thing for lots of people. It's the small steps. For me, that doesn't work as much. I actually find that more painful to speak to one person one-to-one. Gives me greater anxiety. I'd rather be on the stage and speak, and then people are definitely, people will come over to me afterwards and actually be the one to go to someone. I find that works better. I don't know why I'm more comfortable on stage than just as this. I think it's the fear of judgment. Like, you know, people can see right through you when it's just you and them having a conversation and saying appropriate things all the time as well. So I'm just worried about I'm going to offend somebody, whereas on stage I'm a bit more prepared for it. I think the thing is we've just all got to find what works for us, what gets us in those conversations, what gets us moving in the right direction and just pushing that one step further, whether it is a small thing like just walking through the door or whether it is actually just going and speaking on the stage. I guess there's something for us all, but we'll just never know if, like you say, Anne, we're not curious enough to just try something. You got to always just tell yourself, like, what's the worst that can happen? Do you know, like that's all that got me through difficult times. I'm like, well, I'm definitely not going to die. So let's just see. And, you know, you have some shocking experiences, like you said, the middle of the room mats, which I would never do. I would be in the back corner as well. But then lots of great things come from it as well. So I think it is just a matter of trial and error, trying different things and building your confidence from the last experience that you've had and using that to take you into the next experience.
Definitely.
I think I just keep freezing. My internet's crap.
Is that my internet?
Yeah, no, I think it's mine. I'm in Bolton and we've only just got Wi-Fi, I think. Like in the whole of the town, it's only just got it. Not at home. It's a nightmare. Yeah, so I will leave it to see. Does anybody else have any questions or want to add anything, or want to ask Anne anything before we wrap up? No, perfect. Well, thanks so much, Anne, for taking the time to come and speak to us today. I'll send you over the recording afterwards and we'll do a write-up for our newsletter for it as well. And guess the next time we'll see everybody is either the awards or UK Construction Week in Birmingham or otherwise then this next event in a month's time. So best of luck, everybody, and speak soon.
Thanks so much, Anne.
Speak soon. Thank you all.
everyone.
Bye-bye.